Welcome back to another episode of Lazer Radio. I'm Brad Sohner. This episode is brought to you by the Lazer Z1 helmet. No other helmet offers the same level of technology or adaptability that can be found with the Lazer Z1. From the optional LifeBeam integrated heart rate monitor, aeroshell cover for weather resistance or increased aerodynamic performance, integrated rear LED light for increased visibility in low light conditions, and MIPS for increased rider protection, the Lazer Z1 really does have it all. Try on the Lazer Z1 at your local Lazer dealer. On today's show, we're talking about one of my favorite teams in the sport right now, the Amy D Foundation team. You've probably seen the orange and blue jerseys out at your local cross race or on the road. They support a road program as well. This was a team that was started after the tragic death of Amy Dombroski, who was killed in a training accident. She was one of America's top cyclocross racers at the time. And after her death, her brother Dan, who's joining us today, started the program to really continue her legacy. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what the foundation stands for, what it means. But Dan, before we get to that, I want to learn a little more about where you guys came from, what Amy's life was like before she moved to Europe and started racing her bike professionally.
So, I'm to properly introduce myself, I would have to say I'm Amy Dombroski's brother, and I actually say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek because I was 6 years older than her, and I got into cycling first, and had gotten to the point where, certainly people around the Boulder, Colorado area, knew who I was. And when Amy moved out there and started getting into bikes, and for a very short period of time, it was, oh, you're Amy, you're Dan's sister. And that did not last very long. And it seemed like within about 6 months there, it was, oh, you're Dan, you're Amy's brother. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of the proper introduction, I guess. And
you guys moved from Vermont. I want to go back to the beginning, make sure we have the whole background.
Correct. Yeah, we grew up in Jericho, Vermont, just down the road from Leah and Sabra Davison, Jamie Driscoll, so it's kind of a very odd sort of little microscopic cycling bubble there.
Must be something in the water.
Yeah. I always say I'm like one of the worst cyclists to come out of Jericho, Vermont. So we grew up. Go ahead.
And did the bike racing start there, or did you guys start racing upon the move to Boulder?
It did start there. I grew up. We all grew up mountain biking as juniors at the Catamount Family Center there, Amy was a little bit later because she was younger than the rest of us, but we all grew up alpine skiing and riding bikes together. I actually got Leah Davison on a mountain bike for the first time.
Wow.
So
good call.
yeah, that one worked out pretty well. That's how we grew up. I was the practical one in the family, and went to college and then went to grad school and did that whole thing. That's how I ended up out in Boulder for grad school, and was racing bikes while I was doing that. Amy was much more the follow your passion kind of one in the family. Sure. And tried to make a go with the ski racing thing, and like many others who have then also gone on to successful cycling careers, suffered knee injuries that ended that, and got the cycling bug. And so she came out to she actually came out to Colorado to ski race at Steamboat. That was short-lived, and I was in Boulder at the time, and so she moved in with me. We were living in a little tiny one-bedroom apartment in Boulder, she started riding a bike mainly as rehab. And I think the rehab lasted maybe like 2 weeks or something like that. And she was going, so I think I'm going to be a bike racer.
I think I'm going to do this professionally.
Pretty much, yeah. And you can see kind of the parallels to some of the athletes we've now had in the Amy D Foundation there.
You talk about Amy always being driven by passion, and the first thing I think is, man, not a lot of opportunities to be a pro women's cross racer. Even living in Boulder 10 years ago.
Right.
But that takes some guts to say, I'm sure she was aware of the economic conditions surrounding the sport, right?
Sure. Yeah, I think, she was so young at that point. I didn't even think you're really,
it doesn't even matter at that point.
Yeah,
right?
you're kind of just, that's kind of like such an abstraction at that point, So yeah, it was, as soon as she started, she said, okay, I'm going to be a cyclist, it was like, okay, what workout should I do? And it was like, what are you talking about? Well, you've been riding a bike for like 2 weeks. Like, just go ride your bike, just go have fun, but that was not how she saw it, and that was not her trajectory. So
yeah, an insatiable drive to be the best. And it sounds like there was a pretty competitive streak in the whole family.
Yeah. It was actually funny. So over the weekend we had our 4th annual Amy D Memorial CX Race and fundraising event for the organization, and Mike Friedberg, who knew Amy from mountain biking and from a few years back, and he now runs the Yellow Belly Chicken. And he was reflecting on how when we all first met, when Amy first introduced us to them, it was at the Vail GoPro Games a few years ago, and my dad was out here. And of course, there's like all kinds of different events at those. And he was like, well, I'm going to, join the, do the fly fishing competition, and just, that's just kind of like, I guess, our thing. So.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about we still need to go back and talk about the formation of
Sure,
the foundation.
Yeah.
Amy she was also one of the first and most successful Americans to go race in Europe. I think that's an important part of the story that we should tell. Basically moved to Belgium when no one else was really doing it, or was doing it for a year or two, and then coming back. What was that discussion like when she said, not only said I'm going to be a pro, but now I'm going to move to Europe?
That was, how do I say it? Kind of consistent with, we grew up in an environment where we were encouraged to pursue our dreams and go after big goals, big ambitions. I always said I went and did enough schooling for both of us, and she'd ride her bike enough for both of us, and so it was just kind of consistent with that. It wasn't like, there at no point was there, oh, you're crazy or something like that.
Yeah.
It was, all right, let's do it.
No one was really shocked in the family.
No. It was like, yep, okay, that makes sense. That's kind of the logical progression. So.
And not only did she go to Belgium, but she was getting results, which is also something that a lot of riders say is really important early on. But it sounded like, all things considered, it couldn't have been going any better.
Yeah, it's not over there. I guess you could argue that this is the case anywhere, but I feel like, especially in Europe, just given the challenge they talk about, with especially coming from the U.S. or another country and embedding yourself in it, there's the results, but there's also becoming a part of the community. And that's so important, I think, over there. And that was another thing that she relatively quickly developed, that community of support around her over there. And they, I think that community really kind of brought her in as one of their own. It was such a tight knit community, and it was nice for us knowing that too, because it was like she had a second home over there. And I don't mean a second home as like the physical aspect of the home, but I mean like the everything that comes with that, like the family aspect of home. She had that support structure over there. She had people that looked after her and cared for her and were helping, and that's so important.
And then 2013, I guess it was, we got the news that Amy was hit while she was out training in Belgium, and everyone was shocked, which I think speaks to what you were just talking about, the way that she had made her way into the community. I remember hearing the news from our friend Dave Toll, and Dave was speechless, which I've never seen from a guy who's so verbose with his words. But and that was a story with a lot of people. And I think the fact that the Amy D Foundation is where it is today also says a lot about Amy, and that's something you have to be incredibly proud of, to see where it's gone in, what I guess is coming up on 10 years now. Is that?
Well, no, the organization is coming up on 4 years.
On 4 years, so okay.
2013, actually tomorrow, October 3rd, will be the 4th anniversary of her passing. As one of our board members, kind of put it, he was like, it's in some sense it's maybe kind of morbid, but that date is in some sense reflective of the birth of the organization. So in terms of trying to think about it being something positive moving forward. So
well, and that that's exactly what the Amy D Foundation is the positive light that that Amy brought. And so talk about what you guys are doing. I mean, the word that I hear when I talk with everyone about the Amy D Foundation is opportunity and platform. These two words seem to come up a lot when I talk with the athletes and people involved with the team. How do you describe what the Amy D Foundation is all about?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. The words that people will hear me often say, kind of like the elevator, pitch or whatever, is, it's all the programming works to build participation, opportunity, and equality for women in the sport. And that ranges from, on one end, we collaborate closely with the Little Bellas. That's Leah and Sabra Davison's nonprofit organization, mentoring on bikes for young girls, totally non-competitive, but building that participation base. We're huge proponents of that programming. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got, I guess what I would call a elite development structure that, allows very talented and driven young women a opportunity to pursue their dreams, to be the best that they can possibly be. And we strongly believe that is not only, even though the focus is on women, that it's not only that it's constructive for the sport as a whole, and that also that it goes beyond. I mean, in some sense, I don't really care whether the women become professional bike racers or plumbers or doctors. I think there's so much in the life experiences and pursuing your dreams and pursuing strong goals that you take away and will be applied in wherever they go in life.
Let's talk about some of the alumni, because I mean, you guys always have an awesome roster. I guess let's focus on cross, since we're in the middle of cross season. We should there's a road program and a cross program. We see the road program all over the U.S., and then the cross program is I guess one or now two riders this year. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But let's go back to the start. The first Amy D cross athlete.
Yeah, Erica Zveta, and yeah, she was our guinea pig, and she came into the program, and we I guess where to start. I mean, at that point with that was one of our first programs that we had done at all as an organization. We benefited greatly from the input and guidance of Don Kellogg, formerly of Clement Tires, now Donnelly Tires, and he really helped us get that off the ground. We kind of pioneered the way we do the application process at that point, where it was kind of a written, rather than just like pouring through race resumes, it's actually like a written sort of essay style application with pretty open-ended questions. And then we did phone interviews with a narrowed down selection of athletes. And what it came down to was, was kind of just like what felt right, in terms of we felt like we had a budget to work with. We knew we could support one rider through an entire season. And, it was kind of like, well, where can we put our money such that it would make the biggest difference in someone's life and in terms of what they can do? And just Erica's application and the way she talked about kind of where she was in life and these things, it struck a chord with us, and she had great success at it.
What a year she had.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, she, it wasn't like she was unheard of by any means, but, she was not considered, I would not say she was considered a top level, domestic UCI contender. And she was winning races that season, and then went on to sign a pro road contract, and so it was just like, I mean, for us as an organization, I mean, certainly it was a huge success, I think, for her. But for us, in terms of building credibility of the program, I mean, it was like we came out swinging. It was really awesome.
After that first year, I mean, was there a sense of like, wow, this really worked, and we did a full season and picked a successful rider that really developed? I mean, was it everything you thought it was going to be and more?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. It was hugely reassuring for us that, it was like the model works. It's like, imagine that if you take someone who's talented and driven and you give them the resources they need, they succeed. Like shocking, it's, but it was obviously much more meaningful than that, with, given how the organization started and everything. But, and then it's also true that, success breeds success, and that certainly what came out of, that first season in terms of visibility of the programming and so forth led into other opportunities, like for instance, kicking off, the road programming. And we are very opportunistic as a organization in terms of how we, explore new programming opportunities, and pretty much everything we do relies on strong collaborations with really good folks who believe in the mission. Lazer helmets being one of them.
Yeah, so. which it doesn't seem has been, too tough to find. Everyone's gotten behind this thing pretty quickly, which we've all been happy to see.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so then we move on from Erica, and along comes Rebecca Faringer, right? Which would be the next rider, sort of in the lineage of Amy D Foundation support.
Well, technically, after that, we started our road pro. So if we're still talking just cross, then yes. But that after that first cross season with
so let's talk about the formation of a road program. Vastly different than forming a cross program.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, how did that come about?
Well, that was essentially Michael Engelman, who said to say hi, by the way. But as you know, he's a huge proponent of developing the sport for women and opportunities for women in the sport. And he came to us, and that was the year that Tour of the Gila was really kind of struggling, and there was a private donor that came in last minute and really kind of saved the whole thing. And basically, in kind of conjunction with that, they said, "Hey, what if we do this cool thing with a Amy D Foundation composite team, and we'll get together some of the riders at that point who had been with Amy on road teams before, and the team was composed largely of her former teammates, and then with a couple younger women too, and it was hugely meaningful for us to sort of kick off our road programming with Tour of the Gila, because that was the first road stage race that Amy had done, that Amy had competed in, and so there's just kind of a lot of history there, and they Tour of the Gila administration, Jack Brennan and all those guys, they're just super supportive of our organization, and they did a lot of fun media stuff with it, and and we got Mara Abbott involved, and again, another Mara and Amy were always very close and trained together and stuff. So it was a very, very meaningful way, I think, to kick off our road programming, and the concept of the road programming with that we have then carried through multiple seasons now, is a composite team structure whereby we bring seasoned professional athletes in with younger up and coming riders. And it actually is kind of, when I talk about building opportunity, it's actually oftentimes kind of a dual opportunity, because the thing is that you see on the women's side of the sport that even a lot of the top professional women's teams don't necessarily have the funding and resources they need to be able to send their athletes, even their top athletes, to all of the events that they would necessarily like to compete at. And so you get, especially, at the UCI level where you need to enter a complete team, you get these very good professional athletes who are like, searching for a team because, like, hey, Tour of the Gila or Redlands or whatever the event is, it's I need to go there. I need to be there at that event. And so it's an opportunity, creates an opportunity from that perspective, because we can fill some of that need, but then also by bringing in some of the younger talent, we give them an opportunity to compete on these teams and ride alongside these seasoned athletes, and it creates these mentoring opportunities, which are just fantastic. And we routinely hear from these young women after they've been through one of these programs, that, oh my goodness, that those few days of racing or that week of racing on the Amy D Foundation team, I learned more than I learned through the entire rest of the season, about how to become a successful bike racer.
You were talking about Redlands. I'm just looking at the 2016 Redlands results, looking at this Amy D roster. And yeah, I mean, Mara Abbott, Amber Mickey is on the list, Amber Pierce. Riding under names like that is pretty awesome. Talk about an opportunity. And so it continued throughout the season. I mean, after Gila, you guys, was it clear that you were going to do a full road campaign, or did you have a calendar in mind at that point?
It was funny with the first one. We kind of thought, well, let's just do this. We had at the time we had funding for one race. We're like, let's just we'll do it and see what comes out of it. And due to some of the attention and media that was on it, and I think how meaningful it was, that again, it's like this idea of success breeds success. It stirred up, some additional resources that we were able to tap into, and do a couple more events, and we've been able to fund it every year since, and granted, it's we're only doing 3-4 major events a year at this point. Also we do an awful lot with not very much money. It's also part of it. So,
which the constant battle, I think, of every cycling team out there.
For sure, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you guys know it's important. What races these riders need to go to, and what they need to do what they want to do. So let's move back to cross, talk about Rebecca, and then move into the program this year, because it is expanding with two athletes this year in 2017. But talk about where Rebecca came from, how that relationship came to be.
Yeah. So, at that point, we had a successful first year of cross. And so we're all, kind of had the attitude of, let's do it again, let's see if we can replicate it, and so we essentially mirrored that same application process again, and again, a great pool of athletes, really, really strong, dedicated, talented riders applied for it, and in many of these cases you're like, geez, I wish I had funding to, give the opportunity to 10 of these riders, but you work with what you've got, and did a phone interview with Becca, and she's, as you know, because you've talked with her, she's not too hard to talk to,
yeah,
and
sure.
And that's a huge part of it, is just having someone that it's so clearly not just about results, but it's also not just about, developing the person on the bike. It's about, how they represent themselves and the organization and off the bike. And you get a lot of that feel for that out of doing, getting on the phone and talking to someone, and just kind of hashing it out. And so we had a great feeling for Becca that it was going to be a good opportunity for her, and the type of athlete that we would want to support. And it was kind of the same kind of thing, where it was, in the end, it was like, well, where, we've got, X amount of dollars, and where can we spend those dollars to make the biggest difference in someone's life, in terms of them, going after their ambitions. And we could just see the trajectory, if you looked at, where kind of, she was so new to cyclocross. Very few people knew who she was at that point. But by the end of that season, they knew who she was, that's for sure.
Which is a great example of one of those riders that could have easily slipped through the cracks.
Sure,
if it weren't
absolutely.
For the opportunity and the platform to actually get out there and race and see what might happen. See what if you take that chance, what happens. Mission accomplished with Becca for sure.
For sure. Yep. Exactly.
So she's sort of still involved with the organization. She's racing for Stan's No Tubes this year, but you guys sort of have a partnership with the team. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, she's been hard to get rid of. I'm just kidding.
She just likes the orange and blue kit.
Yeah,
She just
yeah. No, so one of my kind of longer term sort of visions for this program have been that you bring up an athlete, you develop, you give them these opportunities, they succeed, they move beyond the sort of direct umbrella of the organization, but at the same time, you keep them involved. And in particular, you keep them involved with the new and upcoming athletes. And it essentially starts to build I guess I would call it like a positive cycle of development where you've got these athletes who've come through and found success under the programming, and they're still there to lend their experience to help mentor the younger up and coming riders, and that's essentially what we are doing this year. So that, there's always, it's always challenges. There's always challenges when you bring, new aspects into the programming, and I know it's been a challenge for Becca to all of a sudden be learning the role of a program manager, let alone managing new athletes. But it's also extremely exciting, both for her and for us. And I think it's meaningful to, again, as I was saying, to keep her involved in the programming. And incidentally, we also put her to work doing a bunch of other stuff. Like she's keeping up our website now. She's very good at that kind of stuff. Much better her doing it than me. And so. Exactly. Yeah. So we've done a good job of keeping her involved, I would say. And it's, she and I are, in regular communication, about all kinds of stuff, and I'll bounce ideas off of her and stuff like that. And it's fantastic. I love having her, involved in, her continued involvement in the programming.
Yeah. So this year you guys are overseeing two new riders who are both awesome people and awesome bike racers. Krista Gent from Colorado and KK Santos from Louisville, Kentucky.
Correct.
Krista is 27 years old, 28 years old, and KK a little younger. I want to say 20 years old. Sort of an older rider and a younger rider. Is that on purpose?
Boy,
I don't want to say 27 is old in cross, but
no, I know, right? Yeah. Yeah. We were a little bit. We did go into this season wanting to try to both grow the programming a little bit and at the same time also at least attempt to embrace some younger talent. The first 2 years we did it, we were operating essentially under the structure whereby there was space for one rider and only one rider. And so we very much approached it from the angle of, okay, let's give it to the rider who in, a single season can really make a splash, is ready to compete at a full season of domestic UCI races. And this year we said, okay, we've got a little bit more latitude because, we're essentially structuring our own program a little bit this year,
You're writing the rules. So, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. So we could a little bit do whatever we wanted. And so we said, well, let's try something a little bit different. And
yeah. In the true Amy D spirit, no fear, let's try something different, right?
Exactly. And so we had said right off the get-go, one of the things that I'd wanted to do is have an opportunity for a younger collegiate level athlete, in working within the sort of constraints of the lifestyle of that athlete. Collegiate cycling is an amazing thing that we have going on in this country, and we certainly don't want to, step in the way of that at all. And we also don't want to step in the way of getting an education, either. So, that was one thing that we really, we're really focused on. Okay, let's make sure that, we don't try to overdo it here, and then so we were kind of, I guess I would say we were a little bit earmarking one spot for a collegiate kind of level athlete, and then we were pretty much totally open on a second athlete of just what we wanted to do. And Krista had actually been involved in the road programming previously, so we were familiar with her as well from that. So that always helps, to know that, okay, this person gets the program, they know what it's about, and so forth. So
are you seeing more interest in the program? I assume you guys are a major force in the American the American bike racing world now. I mean, do you feel that way? Do you feel like a team owner of a big team, which it really is, or at least a noticeable team? Maybe not big, but certainly a big presence.
It's funny. It's how do I answer that question? Boy, that's kind of a loaded question.
Yeah, I asked. So I was at my local bike shop in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania yesterday, going out to ride with a friend who was getting on a bike for the first time. So I took him to this shop. It's called Kindred Cycles, and I saw an Amy D hat for sale along the wall, and I was like, man, that is so cool that someone that that we have a personal connection with, and that I'm going to talk to tomorrow about this foundation, and there it is in the wild in Pittsburgh. I can only imagine your feeling. I mean, you must have had that a million times over.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so proud of this organization and everybody who's been a part of it, who's enabled it, who's put their time and their money behind it, and then of course it goes without saying of the athletes who have been a part of it. It's been amazing to get to know them and see their growth, and I think I've finally come to the realization that the Amy D Foundation is a thing. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. When you start an organization, a program like this, and especially, I mean, even major trade teams and stuff come and go, so frequently, and so in those first couple of years, you kind of react to any situation or any opportunity of like, this could make or break us, or, you just don't know, like how, I mean, initially, to give you kind of a perspective, we had a very realistic, well, I don't know if realistic is the right word, but kind of a very analytical approach to that first cyclocross season after Amy passed. It was in October of 2013. It was right at the start of the cyclocross season. There was a ton of media attention on it. And we were just coming out with this announcement of this concept of the Amy D Foundation. And the community so clearly embraced it. We did a ton of fundraising right off the bat. And we had set ourselves up for, that there was a very real possibility that after that coming cyclocross national championships, which was that year going to be in Boulder, that it would be out of sight, out of mind. at that point, cyclocross season is done, because people's memories, on this kind of stuff are short, and so we were kind of setting ourselves up for that. And the idea that, this can't be, the Amy D fan club forever, there's got to be something, there's got to be a bigger concept behind it that is going to contribute in a major way to meeting the needs of the sport and the people who are behind it. And, as we're, now 4 years in, it's like, yeah, it's working. We've got demonstrated success. The people, I think, who have worked with us for the most part have, there could be some exceptions, I don't know, but I think the people who have worked
I haven't heard anything but good
things
about from people that have been part of the program.
Pretty happy about the experience, and so it continues to be meaningful and relevant to the sport, and that's an amazing thing. It's for sure. I think about that a lot.
Well, you deserve a lot of credit. You've really created something amazing here. Success stories every week, every month, and certainly every year.
Well, thank you. But I appreciate that. But it's also, I don't want to, I don't look at it as my organization. I look at it as our community's organization. And what do we've now, you used the word platform before. The community together, we have built this platform. What do we want to do with it? And I wholeheartedly invite people to get involved, to be a part of determining, what we're going to do with it next. That's part of the community nature of this organization, and it's starting to get its wings now. Where we actually have a couple staff members now, and people who are saying, hey, what about this? What if let's get this, like for instance, this season we have a new sort of grassroots / club team, for lack of a better word to use, that we're kicking off. And idea behind that is to kind of build accessibility for everyone within, you don't need to be a professional level or aspiring professional racer to be a part of the Amy D Foundation, and so that's what, that I think is kind of the challenge to the community is, even if I were to just completely step out of the picture, what does the community want the Amy D Foundation to be?
Well, I think you can be safe in knowing that it would certainly go on with or without you.
Sure.
For lack of a better term. Hey, for those that do want to support, what's the best way to help you guys out?
Check us out at amydfoundation.org. There is, you can learn more about the programming and where we came from and where we're going. And we are a 501c3 nonprofit, so your gifted dollars are tax exempt to the to whatever IRS will let you get away with.
Yeah. So. Or you can always stop by at your favorite bike race. Find KK or Krista.
Yeah. And I will mention we are predominantly privately, or no, I shouldn't say privately funded, but publicly funded through donations.
So that stuff matters. Yeah. Get them in.
Exactly.
Good. All right. Well, I hope we can get some clicks and some dollars into the Amy D coffers. Dan, thanks for doing this today, man. We really appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks so much, Brad. It was great to talk with you.
Keep up the awesome work. We love what you're doing.
Will do. Thanks.
All right. We'll talk to you again. Thanks. This has been another episode of Lazer Radio. Be sure to check out more great shows on the Wide Angle Podium Network. Until next time, I'm Brad Sohner, saying thanks for listening.